Imagine waking in the dead of night, your breath stolen by an unseen hand, while a young man's eyes, cold as Judgment Day, watch your soul slip away. In 1875 Kansas, mercy turned to murder, and one caregiver's gentle touch hid the devil's grip. Was this divine retribution, or the birth of unrelenting evil? The Kansas plains of 1875 stretched like a vast, unforgiving canvas under a sky heavy with the weight of forgotten sins. Dust swirled in lazy eddies along dirt roads scarred by wagon wheels, carrying the faint scent of parched earth and distant rain that never came. In the wake of the Civil War's bloody shadow, families huddled in clapboard farmhouses, their lives a fragile balance of hope and hardship. Elderly kin, bent by years or broken by battle, lingered in dim rooms lit by kerosene lamps, their wheezing breaths a constant reminder of mortality's inexorable march. Doctors were ghosts in these rural expanses, scarce as mercy, expensive as salvation. Instead, wandering caregivers drifted from homestead to homestead, angels of relief or harbingers of the end, depending on the hand of fate. Into this world stepped a young man known as Thomas Whitfield, his arrival as quiet as twilight creeping over the fields. 19 years old, with a face smooth as polished stone and eyes that held the depth of shadowed wells, he carried himself with the poise of someone who had stared into the abyss and found it familiar. His voice, soft and measured, wove tales of apprenticeship under a Missouri country doctor, lessons learned not in sterile halls, but in the raw theater of suffering barns and fevered bedsides. References fluttered from his pockets like captured prayers, handwritten notes from grateful widows and sons, praising his unwavering vigil over the dying, his uncanny knack for soothing the soul's final unrest. But beneath this veneer of compassion lurked something primal, a predator refined by 7 years of evasion since Timothy Caldwell vanished from the Missouri State Hospital's iron grasp. The boy who once dissected life's fragile threads in hidden caves had matured into a master of deception, wielding human kindness as a scalpel. No longer content with the crude tortures of youth, he had evolved his methods, now a symphony of subtlety, where death arrived not with violence's clamor, but on the whisper of inevitability. In the spiritual lexicon of the era, where biblical justice loomed large and sermons thundered from wooden pulpits, Thomas embodied a chilling archetype, the false shepherd, leading the flock not to green pastures but to the valley of the shadow of death. Was he an instrument of divine retribution, culling the weak as in the plagues of old? Or a fallen soul, reveling in the godlike power of deciding when life's flame flickered out? Thomas's modus operandi was a masterpiece of calculated mercy. He sought the forsaken, dementia-riddled elders whose minds wandered lost corridors of memory, war-scarred veterans haunted by soldiers' heart, their nights torn by invisible battles, the terminally ill, whose bodies betrayed them inch by agonizing inch. These were the soul's society tucked away, their suffering a private purgatory. Thomas charged modestly, enough to sustain his nomadic existence, never enough to arouse greed's suspicion. His stays were brief, 2 to 6 weeks, a fleeting presence that left families indebted rather than doubting. He prepared them with gentle prophecies, the end draws near, let us make these days count. And when death came, it wore the mask of nature's decree, leaving no fingerprints but those of fate. Visualize the scene, a farmhouse at dawn, the first light slicing through frost-laced windows like accusatory fingers. Thomas, silhouetted against the pale glow, administers a tincture with steady hands, drops falling into a tin cup with the rhythmic plink of a metronome counting down to eternity. The air thick with the metallic tang of illness, mingled with wood smoke from a dying hearth. Patient's eyes, clouded with pain, meet his, searching for comfort, finding only a void. In these moments, the spiritual undercurrent pulsed, guilt's heavy chain, sin's unspoken ledger. For Thomas, each life was a canvas for experimentation, a test of how far compassion could bend before snapping into control. Biblical echoes haunted his actions, Cain's mark, perhaps, or the angel of death passing over marked doors, but here, every threshold invited doom. Dr. Samuel Harding, now a spectral figure at 68, haunted by retirement's empty hours, pieced together this mosaic from afar. His leather-bound journals from Sedalia County, yellowed pages filled with sketches of dissected horrors, gathered dust on oak shelves. Yet whispers reached him, letters from distant colleagues, newspaper clippings yellow as sin detailing a caregiver whose patience met ends too tidy, too timed. Harding's mind, sharpened by decades dissecting the human form, saw patterns where others saw coincidence. The boy he once confined had shed his skin, emerging as a chameleon of death. In quiet evenings, pipe smoke curling like ascending prayers, Harding pondered the soul's architecture. Was Timothy's darkness innate, a demonic seed planted at birth? Or forged in the crucible of abandonment, a twisted bid for redemption through domination? The doctor's pursuit became his own spiritual quest, chasing not just a killer, but the essence of evil's evolution. Pause here, viewer, feel the chill settling in your bones, like frost on a grave marker. Thomas's trail began in Leavenworth County, March 1875. Martha Henley, 62, consumed by tuberculosis's relentless fire, coughed her life away in a room heavy with laudanum's bitter haze. Her family, faces etched with exhaustion, had summoned Thomas on a neighbor's word. He arrived at dusk, valise in hand, his boots leaving faint imprints in the mud like temporary sins. For weeks, he tended her, sponging fevered brows under flickering candlelight, murmuring psalms that twisted comfort into control. "The Lord giveth and taketh away," he'd intone, his voice a velvet blade. Martha's decline accelerated subtly, nights of labored breathing echoing through thin walls, days of weakening pulse under his watchful gaze. When death claimed her, Thomas summoned Dr. Benjamin Wheeler, the county physician, a stout man with mudchops framing a skeptical face. Wheeler, arriving on horseback through morning mist, found Thomas composed as marble, recounting symptoms with anatomical precision. The phthisis advanced to the lungs collapse, Sir, hemoptysis evident in the final hours. No tremor in his voice, no reddened eyes from vigil's toll. Instead, inquiries probed like surgical tools. How are causes certified? What scrutiny for the aged? Wheeler's journal entry that night, penned by lamplights tremble, the youth's detachment unnerves. Death's familiarity breeds not sorrow, but study, as if harvesting knowledge from the reaper's field. The Henleys, grief-veiled, hailed Thomas as saintly. He eased her passage, the daughter wept, pressing coins into his palm. Yet in the spiritual realm, undertones stirred. Martha's final confession, whispered to Thomas alone, of youthful indiscretions, adultery's shadow, buried regrets. Did he absolve or exploit? The Bible's warnings of false prophets echoed in Wheeler's mind, a nagging doubt seeding suspicion. Thomas vanished days later, a ghost on the windswept roads, reappearing in Shawnee County for Samuel Morrison, 73, felled by stroke's cruel strike. The farmhouse squatted amid golden wheat fields swaying like judgmental congregations. Morrison's son, Robert, broad-shouldered from plow work, welcomed Thomas with calloused handshake. "The Henleys spoke miracles of you," he grunted, leading him to the dim bedroom where Samuel lay, one side slack as melted wax, eyes pleading from a prison of flesh. Thomas's routine unfolded with ritualistic grace. Dawn walks through dew-kissed fields, his figure a solitary silhouette against the rising sun, perhaps communing with inner demons or plotting divine mimicry. Neighbors glimpsed him carrying vials glinting like forbidden elixirs, or standing motionless, wind tousling his hair as if listening to whispers from the ether. "Fresh air sustains the carer," he'd explain with a smile that never reached his eyes. Sensory details painted the horror, the creak of floorboards under midnight paces, the acrid smell of herbal poultices masking something fouler, the muffled groans of a man wrestling mortality. 4 weeks in, Thomas foretold doom, signs of another apoplexy. "Sir, prepare your hearts." That Tuesday morn, death struck like a thief in the night. Wheeler, summoned again, probed the corpse under harsh sunlight streaming through lace curtains, finding no mar. Yet Thomas's questions returned, a litany probing official veils. Robert's praise flowed, "He was there till the end, a rock in our storm." But in quiet reflection, spiritual dread crept. Samuel's war tales, confessed in delirium, of atrocities committed in battle's fog. Sins unabsolved, now judged by a mortal hand? Thomas's gaze, as he watched the burial from afar, held a satisfaction akin to Satan's after the fall. Spring bled into summer's sweltering embrace, Thomas weaving through counties like a nomadic specter. Patterns crystallized, invisible to most, death's time to his tenure, alibis ironclad, warnings prophetic. He chose the damned, the ill-fated whose ends seemed scripted by providence. Families, blinded by gratitude, saw angel where demon lurked. His circuitous path, Leavenworth to Shawnee to Jefferson, ensured amnesia veiled his wake. Months between returns dulled memories, new desperation welcomed him anew. Emotionally, the toll mounted. Imagine the dread in a daughter's eyes, watching her father's vitality ebb under expert care, the curiosity turning to horror as patterns whispered from graveyards. Empathy for victims swelled. Their final moments, alone with a predator cloaked in kindness. Reflection on justice's scales. In an era of fire and brimstone preaching, was Thomas enacting biblical vengeance? Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. Yet here, a man usurped the throne, meting out retribution for sins glimpsed in confidential whispers. The unraveling dawn in Oskaloosa, August 1875, a hamlet nestled in rolling hills, church steeple piercing the sky like a finger of accusation. Reverend Jonathan Hartwell, 67, battled heart failure, his chest a battlefield of erratic rhythms. Bedridden in a room adorned with crucifixes and faded daguerreotypes, he gasped under quilts heavy with summer's heat. Daughter Elizabeth, her apron stained from ceaseless toil, hired Thomas on glowing word of mouth. He arrived at noon, sunlight haloing his form like ironic sanctity. Initial weeks mirrored miracles. Thomas's regimen's cool compresses scented with lavender, measured doses of digitalis steadied the reverend's pulse. Hartwell, mind keen as scripture's edge, observed from pillows propped like thrones. A lifetime counseling the lost honed his intuition. He pierced Thomas's facade. Questions probed, church finances, household valuables veiled under care's guise. But the gaze, oh, that gaze, when unguarded, clinical, dissecting, void of empathy. Nights fractured by awakenings, Thomas looming bedside, shadow dancing in moonlight, not tending but observing, as if awaiting the soul's exodus. August 15th shattered the illusion. Morning light filtered through muslin curtains, birdsong a mocking chorus. Hartwell summoned Elizabeth, voice trembling like autumn leaves. Daughter, beware. That boy's eyes hold no light, only calculation. He watches me sleep, not as guardian, but executioner. Promise, never leave us alone. Her heart tore, gratitude clashing with paternal fear. Spiritual weight pressed, Hartwell, vessel of God's word, sensed demonic presence, a wolf in sheep's clothing per Matthew's warning. Afternoon's languid heat, Elizabeth in the kitchen, flour dusting hands like penance ash. A cry pierced the air, not summons, but terror's wail. She bolted, skirts whipping, bursting into the room. Thomas stood over the bed, pillow in grasp, face a mask of feigned concern. Adjusting for comfort, ma'am, he suffered a spell. Hartwell lay still, breath shallow as whispered prayer. Wheeler arrived, horse lathered, examining under tension's pall. Hartwell stirred, memories intact, he smothered me, pillow pressed like judgment's hand. I fought, but darkness closed. Accusation hung heavy as incense. Thomas, confronted, wove denial's web, shock-widened eyes, hurt tone, hallucinations from oxygen's dearth. I've seen such distortions. Plausible, persuasive, yet Wheeler's seed of doubt blossomed. Investigations unfurled like unraveling scrolls, letters to colleagues, perusal of records. Patterns emerged, deaths trailing Thomas like faithful hounds. Harding's involvement loomed, his quest converging. Spiritually chilling, was this exposure divine intervention, justice's arc bending? Or merely the first crack in evil's armor? The air thickened with impending storm, thunder rumbling distant as retribution's approach. Thomas's facade cracked, revealing the boy beneath, Timothy Caldwell, architect of orchestrated ends. Dread built, curiosity insatiable, what horrors lay in his wake? Empathy for the hunted, reflection on sin's legacy. In this cinematic tapestry, sensory immersion pulled viewers deeper, the creak of doors in midnight hush, the metallic taste of fear, lighting shifting from golden hope to shadowy despair. Harding, in his study, lamplight pooling like blood, penned frantic missives. The predator's evolution complete, from cave-bound torturer to society's silent reaper. Psychological depths plumbed, guilt's absence, replaced by godlike detachment. Biblical symbolism wove through, the mark of Cain, wandering eternal, slaying in secret. Redemption? A distant mirage. Divine retribution circled, poised to strike. As summer waned, Oskaloosa's fields turned amber, harvest's bounty mocking death's harvest. Wheeler's discoveries mounted testimonies unearthed, connections forged. Thomas sensed the news, his walks now furtive, eyes scanning horizons for escape's path. Yet the spiritual undercurrent surged, justice, inexorable as scripture, closed in. The boy science couldn't explain had become the man faith couldn't absolve. Pause, breathe, feel the emotional immersion, the dread coiling like smoke. Curiosity demands, what broke the chain? Reflection lingers, in our compassion, do we invite wolves? The story's rhythm pulses onward, building to climax's edge. The autumn winds of 1875 swept across the Kansas prairies like the breath of judgment, carrying the scent of decaying leaves and the faint, acrid tang of wood smoke from distant chimneys. In Oskaloosa's modest sheriff's office, walls lined with wanted posters yellowed by time, Dr. Benjamin Wheeler hunched over a scarred oak desk, his spectacles reflecting the dance of a single oil lamp's flame. Maps sprawled before him, pins marking death's quiet footprints, red for confirmed, black for suspected. County officials from Leavenworth, Shawnee, and Jefferson huddled in the dim light, their faces etched with the weariness of men confronting the incomprehensible. Tobacco smoke hung heavy, a veil over revelations that clawed at the soul. What emerged from their deliberations was a portrait of evil refined, a predator who had turned vulnerability into a harvest field. 17 deaths in 6 months, each one a masterpiece of deception, cloaked in the robes of natural decline. Individually, they whispered of fate's cruelty, a heart's final stutter, lungs drowning in their own fluid, strokes felling the frail like autumn timber. But collectively, they screamed accusation. Wheeler's ledger, pages crinkling under calloused fingers, detailed the pattern. Thomas Whitfield's arrival heralded improvement, a false dawn of hope, followed by subtle warnings: the end nears, steel your spirits, and then, the inevitable nightfall. Families, blinded by grief's haze, saw mercy where malice lurked. Yet now, in the cold arithmetic of investigation, the truth pierced like a biblical sword. This was no caregiver, but a reaper, sowing death for his own inscrutable harvest. Compounding the horror were the thefts, petty pilferings that families dismissed as morning's confusion. A silver locket vanishing from a bedside table, its chain cold as betrayal, coins from a hidden jar, their clink echoing lost trust, heirloom rings slipped from lifeless fingers under cover of condolence. These were not greed. Greed's crude grabs but calculated extractions, funding a nomad's existence. More damning, Wheeler unearthed the foundation of lies, references forged like counterfeit scripture, families in Missouri who dissolved into fiction upon inquiry. No such man tended our kin, letters replied, ink bleeding doubt. Thomas Whitfield was a ghost constructed from paper and pretense, a false idol preying on the faithful's desperation. As Wheeler's probe deepened, tendrils extended beyond Kansas borders, snaking into Missouri, Nebraska, Colorado, lands scarred by war's aftermath, where the infirm lingered in shadowed homesteads. Reports trickled in via telegram's staccato rhythm, similar shadows, a young healer whose patience expired with eerie punctuality, vanishing like mist at dawn. The air in Wheeler's office grew thick with the spiritual weight of it all. In an era where preachers thundered of sin's wages, was this divine justice visiting the vulnerable? Or a mortal usurping the Almighty's role, meting out death as experiment? Psychological symbolism loomed, guilt's ledger unbalanced, redemption's path perverted into domination's highway. Timothy, once Caldwell, embodied the fallen angel, Lucifer's curiosity twisted into mortal form, testing humanity's breaking point. The pivotal link snapped into place with a telegram's urgent tap, Wheeler's query to Missouri, seeking youths versed in medicine's arts. Dr. Samuel Harding's response crackled with warning: stop investigating immediately. Boy from Sedalia case. Extremely dangerous. Will arrive Kansas soonest. Harding, at 68, a stooped figure with eyes sharpened by regret, had transformed retirement into vigil. His study in Missouri, shelves groaning under journals bound in weathered leather, chronicled 7 years' pursuit, over 40 suspicious passings, hallmarks mirroring the Sedalia horrors, clinical detachment, victims' frailty exploited, alibis woven from compassion's threads. The Kansas cluster shone clearest yet, a constellation of doom aligning with Harding's profile, systematic, precise, devoid of passion's mess. Harding's arrival in Oskaloosa 3 days hence was a pilgrimage of atonement. Dust from the stagecoach clung to his coat like sins unshriven, his valise heavy with evidence, original Caldwell dossiers, sketches of dissected forms in childish scrawl, correspondence stacking like accusations. First, to Reverend Hartwell's bedside, where lamplight cast elongated shadows on quilted covers, the air laced with medicinal camphor and the faint must of illness. Hartwell, propped on pillows like a prophet in repose, recounted the smothering attempt, Thomas's pillow descending like suffocating judgment, eyes gleaming with cold inquiry. He studied me as one might a pinned insect, the Reverend whispered, voice frail yet fervent. Harding nodded, memories flooding, the same gaze in Sedalia's caves, empathy's void where soul should dwell. Physical markers sealed the revelation, pale blue eyes, mirrors to an empty heaven, blonde locks framing a face unmarred by remorse, the slight build of one who moved like shadow. And the scar, a jagged line on the left hand, remnant of their farmyard clash years prior. "It's him," Harding declared to Wheeler in the hallway's hush, voice trembling with the weight of confirmation. Timothy Caldwell, reborn in deception. Evolution marked the man, from impulsive youth dissecting life's fringes to a sophisticate exploiting trust. Theft now funded the frenzy, but currency was mere means. The true coin was knowledge, the intimate theater of dying breaths, terror's crescendo, grief's unraveling. Biblical undertones chilled, like Cain, wandering marked, or the serpent in Eden, offering poison fruit disguised as aid. United, Harding and Wheeler forged a net of justice, coordinating sheriffs across lines drawn on maps like divine boundaries. Urgency spiked when Thomas announced departure from Hartwell's. "Your father's mended," another calls. Elizabeth's. Relief masked undercurrents of doubt, her hands twisting apron strings like worry beads. Harding recognized the faint Timothy's sixth sense for suspicion, a predator's instinct honed by evasion. Surveillance encircled the property, deputies in haylofts, eyes peering through field glasses, roads watched under moon's accusatory glow. Observations unveiled meticulous machinations, Timothy scouting the sheriff's routines, stopwatch and pocket timing patrols, mapping backwoods trails where underbrush whispered secrets. Cemetery visits stirred dread, him among headstones, notebook in hand, etching names like stolen souls. Cataloging the dead for rebirth, Harding mused, pipe smoke curling like ascending specters. Planning personas, future fields of harvest. Strategic, not impulsive, murder as vocation, death's bureaucracy. The dam broke with the deputy's report, twilight rendezvous at an abandoned mill, timbers creaking like judgment's gavel. Timothy conferring with a stranger, Marcus Sullivan, fresh from Missouri's iron bars, forger extraordinaire. Arrest swift, interrogation under lantern's glare, Sullivan spilled like confession. 6 identities over 7 years, names like Thomas Whitfield, each with forged pedigrees, references blooming from ink's deceit. But deeper horror, Timothy's murmurs of ambition. "Tired of singles," Sullivan quoted, voice quavering. "Seeks remembrance, a grand project, comprehensive experiments on a family scale." Chills rippled through the room, air turning frigid as winter's foretaste. Individual kills? Mere rehearsals. Now, a symphony of suffering, an entire household, eliminated systematically, their responses catalogued like scientific scripture. Harding's analysis pierced, curiosity unbound, testing grief's architecture, desperation's limits, survival's fray. Psychological depths plumbed, sin's escalation, from solitary transgression to communal torment. Divine retribution? Or hubris challenging the Creator? Manhunt ignited when Thomas vanished, errands claimed, but dusk brought absence. Search of his quarters, beneath mattress, a journal bound in human-like leather, pages dense with clinical prose. Families dissected, not bodies, but psyches, vulnerabilities noted, finances tallied, emotions mapped like battle plans. The culmination project sprawled across folios, a blueprint for familial annihilation, prolonged to savor reactions. Observe as bonds shatter, hope crumbles, entries gloated. Spiritual horror amplified, mocking God's design, playing architect of despair. Target, the Hendersons of Lancaster County, Nebraska, prosperous, isolated, William's frailty a beckoning door. Correspondents already seated, Thomas poised as savior. Farm miles from aid, pride veiling peril. Telegrams flew, but 1875's wires lagged like reluctant prophets. Harding, defying age's toll, boarded the train, personal crusade, atonement for Sedalia's lapse. "My failure birthed this monster," he confided to Thompson, eyes distant as receding planes. Visualize the pursuit, locomotives chugging through starlit expanses, steam hissing like suppressed fury, Harding poring over notes by swaying lantern, face a mask of resolve. Emotional immersion deepened, dread for the unwitting Hendersons, curiosity at Timothy's abyss, empathy for Harding's burdened soul. Reflection on justice's arc, slow, yet inexorable, like biblical floods cleansing corruption. Nebraska's fields unfolded, golden under harvest moon, but shadows lengthened. Timothy's lead slimmed, warnings raced ahead. In Lancaster's dusty sheriff's office, plans coalesced, surround the farm, cut escape's veins. Yet spiritual chill lingered, was capture redemption, or merely delay? Timothy's legacy haunted, sins compounded, souls unavenged. As night cloaked the land, lanterns bobbed like searching angels. The Henderson homestead loomed, windows glowing innocently. Inside, perhaps, a stranger's arrival, smile masking apocalypse. Harding's hand tightened on his journal, prayer unspoken, end this, before the grand design unfolds. The air pulsed with suspense, pacing rhythmic as heartbeat, short breaths of revelation, pauses for dread swell. Historically anchored, era's isolation, communications frailty, medicine's naivety. Cinematic, windswept vistas, flickering lights, faces shadowed by hats' brims. Emotionally, terror's grip, curiosity's pull, reflection on evil's nurture. Yet hope flickered, justice's ember, divine perhaps, guiding the hunt. Timothy's overreach, hubris's fatal flaw, exposed the chink. Redemption's thread wove through, Harding's quest, a soul's salvage from failure's depths. The iron wheels of the railroad clattered relentlessly over the Nebraska tracks in October 1875, each jolt a reminder of time's merciless grind. Dr. Samuel Harding, his face lined like ancient parchment under the dim glow of a swaying lantern, pored over faded journals in the cramped passenger car. The air was thick with coal smoke and the musty scent of old leather bindings, mingling with the faint, bitter aroma of his pipe tobacco, a futile ward against the dread coiling in his gut. Copies of his Sedalia notes lay scattered, sketches of dissected creatures, childish scrawls detailing torments, psychological profiles charting a soul's descent into void. 7 years had sharpened Timothy Caldwell into a blade of sophistication, impulses tamed into strategies, evidence erased like sins confessed and forgotten. Harding's worry gnawed deeper. Adaptation was Timothy's gift, a Darwinian evolution of evil, turning mistakes into mastery. From cave-bound butcher to societal serpent, he now wove webs of social deception, exploiting trust's fragile threads. In biblical terms, he was the tempter refined, Satan not raging in hellfire, but whispering in Eden's guise, testing humanity's frailties with godlike detachment. The journey, 3 grueling days by rail and stagecoach, stretched like a pilgrimage through purgatory. Vast prairies rolled under overcast skies, golden harvests bending in winds that carried whispers of impending judgment. Telegrams crackled urgent warnings. Thomas Whitfield had breached the Henderson threshold, welcomed with open arms and desperate gratitude. William Henderson's frailty, a beacon for the predator, positioned Timothy to unleash his culmination project. Every hour's delay was a drop in death's hourglass, the family's isolation a perfect laboratory for torment. Harding envisioned the scene, a sprawling farmhouse amid endless fields, windows like watchful eyes, the air heavy with autumn's decay. Inside, Timothy's presence, polite inquiries masking probes, gentle touches veiling calculations. Spiritual symbolism haunted Harding's thoughts, the family as Job's kin, tested by affliction, Timothy as the adversary, challenging divine order through mortal hubris. Guilt weighed on Harding like chains, his hospital's failure birthed this beast. "Their blood on my hands," he murmured to the rattling window, reflection staring back accusatory. Upon arrival in Lancaster County, gray dawn painted the landscape in somber hues, mist clinging to fence posts like reluctant spirits, distant church bells tolling as if for the damned. Sheriff Robert Kane, a burly man with mustache waxed stiff and revolver holstered low, met Harding with 2 deputies, their badges glinting coldly. Horses stamped impatiently, breath fogging the chill air. The Henderson farm loomed 2 miles out, a silhouette against the horizon, chimney smoke curling lazily, a facade of normalcy. Yet Harding's keen gaze pierced the veil, no dogs bayed warning, their absence a silent scream, morning chores abandoned, tools idle in the barn's shadow, curtains drawn tight, denying the sun's purifying light. Sensory details assaulted, the crunch of gravel under boots, the metallic tang of fierce sweat, the unnatural quiet broken only by wind's mournful sigh. This was no haven, but a stage set for horror, curtains not for privacy, but to shroud experiments in suffering. Kane advanced, Colt drawn, grip white-knuckled, deputies fanning out like avenging angels to seal escapes. Harding lingered by the mounts, heart-pounding rhythmic dread, advising from afar, he's cunning, expect deception. The knock echoed hollow against the oak door, no answer, though life stirred within, smoke's steady rise, muffled shuffles like trap souls. The handle yielded unlocked, a farm family's cardinal sin, especially with a stranger afoot. Invitation or trap? Kane pushed inward, threshold creaking like judgment's hinge, voice booming authority, sheriff's office open up. A feeble plea pierced the gloom, help, cut by a door's slam and fleeing footfalls. The main room unfolded in macabre tableau, William Henderson bound to a chair by the hearth, flames flickering shadows across his gaunt face, eyes hollow with exhaustion's abyss. Bruises bloomed purple on exposed skin, blood crusted at lips split from silenced screams. Margaret sprawled on the sofa, chest rising shallow, drugged into oblivion laudanum's haze, perhaps, eyelids twitching in nightmare's grip. The space transformed, furniture rearranged for observation lines, notebooks splayed with clinical precision entries charting pulses quickening under duress, tears frequency, please timbre. Medical tools gleamed on tables, scalpels, vials of mysterious elixirs, restraints fashioned from household rope. Walls bore charts, graphs of despair's curve, family bonds fracturing under stress's weight. This was Timothy's sanctum, a profane laboratory mocking science's nobility, where humans became specimens in a study of breakdown's anatomy. Henderson's whisper rasped like dry leaves, for science, he said. How families shatter, choices between self and kin. Isolation's method, each member sequestered, food withheld to heighten desperation, water doled as reward for compliance. Psychological blades twisted, feigned empathy crumbling to cruelty, forcing witnesses to siblings' agony, mandating impossible decisions, save your child or your spouse? Emotionally, the immersion crushed, empathy for Henderson's fractured spirit, dread at the grandchildren's unseen terror, curiosity morbidly piqued by Timothy's insights. Spiritually chilling, sin's escalation, divine justice perverted, Timothy playing God, doling retribution for imagined flaws, his evolution a blasphemous ascent. Gunshots shattered the stasis, backyard chaos, deputy shouts. Harding bolted, arriving to behold Timothy, 19 now, lean as a whip, blonde hair disheveled, hands aloft in mock capitulation. Farmyard mud sucked at boots, air electric with tension. But Harding saw the ruse, the subtle shift in stance, eyes scanning for weakness. Deception, he bellowed. Timothy's smile bloomed, unchanged from boyhood, cold satisfaction, a window to pleasure in pain's symphony. Dr. Harding, he intoned, voice polished yet detached, I anticipated you. Questions linger. The dialogue etched eternal scars on Harding's soul. Timothy narrated his odyssey as academic discourse, years refining murder's art, victims as data points in psychology's grand tome. You pegged the absence of empathy, he conceded casually, as if critiquing weather. But defective? No, evolved. Stripped of frailties that chain the masses. Caregiving? A facade for unfettered access, 43 deaths dissected, responses catalogued, grief's patterns mapped. The Hendersons, myopes, eyes alight with fervor reminiscent of hospital sessions. Family under siege, fear's erosion of loyalty, pain's revelation of true selves. Harding discerned the ploy, not surrender, but symposium. Timothy gloated, offering journals as bait, comprehensive mortality study, victim psyches, dynamics, responses. Curiosity beckons, doctor? Temptation surged unethical vistas into human extremes, knowledge forbidden yet alluring. Yet manipulation's scent prevailed, Timothy exploited intellect as vulnerability, mirroring his victims' exploited bonds. Spiritual undercurrents surged, the serpent's apple, knowledge's poison fruit, redemption through understanding, or damnation via complicity? Where are the others? Harding demanded, sidestepping the snare. Timothy's grin sharpened, the experiment's crux. Safe, for now. But choices loom, me or them? Justice or mercy? Revelation cascaded, the pharma labyrinth of peril. James in the loft. Rigged to avalanche, Mary in the cellar, gas whispering death, grandchildren in the wellhouse, supports crumbling, waters rising insidious. Each trapetined torment, rescue one, doom others, pursue Timothy, sacrifice all. Elegant, yes, pride evident. Decision-making's crucible, priorities exposed. Deputies scrambled, tools clanging against barnwood, voices urgent in the cellar's dank. Time fractured, rushed extractions risked collapse, delays amplified agony. Harding's dilemma mirrored victims, healer's oath versus civic duty. Escape Timothy, condemn futures, save lives, unleash the beast. Your finale, Harding accused. Timothy affirmed, society's test of vengeance versus salvation, punishment against palliative. Pacing tightened, short breaths of crisis, pauses heavy with choices weight. Cinematic, mist-shrouded yard, lanterns casting elongated shadows, cries muffled from hidden hells. sensory, mud squelch, gunpowder's acrid bite, sweat salt on lips. Emotionally charged, dread's vice, curiosity at evil's core, empathy for fractured family, reflection on sin's cost, guilt's inheritance, redemption's elusive grasp. As deputies freed James amid creaking timbers, Timothy bolted, faint exposed. Pursuit ensued through fields, wheat slashing like accusatory fingers. Capture came at a ravine's edge, Timothy subdued in mud, smile unbroken. Rescues completed, Mary gasping fresh air, children lifted sobbing from flood's brink. Yet victory hollowed, journals burned by Harding, knowledge's pyre denying temptation. Henderson's recovery slow, scars psychic as physical. Timothy's trial loomed, but his evolution lingered, a haunting legacy of divine justice's ambiguity. Did mercy prevail, or judgment defer? Harding pondered in twilight rides home, piped smoke ascending like unanswered prayers. The narrative's rhythm pulsed, build to standoff's peak, release in resolution's bittersweet. Historically rooted, era's isolation bred vulnerability, medicine's limits amplified horror. Spiritually, themes of choice echoing Eden's fall, retribution's scales tipping precarious. The October skies over the Henderson farm in 1875 hung low and leaden, pregnant with the threat of rain that never fell, mirroring the suspended agony of the moment. Mud churned under boots, clinging like the weight of unspoken sins, as the air carried the sharp, metallic scent of impending violence, gunpowder lingering from earlier shots, mixed with the earthy rot of autumn leaves. Sheriff Robert Kane's deputies moved like specters through the outbuildings, their lanterns casting erratic pools of light that danced across weathered wood and rusted hinges. Each structure held its own chamber of horrors, the barn's loft creaked ominously, rigged wires taut as judgment's noose, the root cellar exhaled faint gas fumes, a slow poison seeping like doubt into the soul, the wellhouse groaned under weakening beams, waters rising insidious as forgotten regrets. Time ticked mercilessly, each second a drop in the bucket of despair, forcing choices that tore at the fabric of humanity. In the yard's center, Timothy Caldwell stood, hands raised in feigned surrender, his lean frame silhouetted against the gray dawn like a fallen seraph. Blonde hair matted with sweat, pale blue eyes reflecting not fear, but a calculated gleam, he faced Dr. Samuel Harding across the divide of years and atrocities. The doctor's coat, travel-worn and dust-streaked, fluttered in the chill wind, his face a map of wrinkles etched by relentless pursuit. This was no mere standoff, it was a biblical reckoning, Abel confronting Cain in the fields of exile, where justice and mercy clashed like thunderheads. Timothy's voice cut through the tension, smooth as oiled steel, the Hendersons have been exemplary subjects, Doctor. But you are the culmination. The observer becomes the observed. Harding's pulse thrummed in his ears, a rhythmic reminder of life's fragility. He probed carefully, voice steady despite the storm within, and after this experiment? What then? Timothy's reply slithered out, laced with ambition's poison, if today's data satisfies, perhaps escalation. From families to communities, entire towns as laboratories. Imagine the insights: societal collapse under engineered stress, bonds fracturing on a grand scale. The vision chilled like winter's first frost, mass orchestrated suffering, deaths not singular but symphonic, a predator evolving to devour wholes. Spiritual dread infused the air, Timothy as the Antichrist's apprentice, mocking God's creation by reshaping it in torment's image. Was this divine retribution for humanity's sins, or a mortal's hubris challenging the heavens? Yet cracks appeared in Timothy's armor, subtle as hairline fractures in ice. His posture, once predatory poise, now held a hint of seeking, eyes flicking to Harding not with dominance, but validation's hunger. The boy who once dissected life in isolation now craved acknowledgement from his original chronicler. Harding seized the thread, weaving psychology's web, impressive scope, Timothy. But incomplete. You've mapped suffering's steps, yet ignored redemption's heights, the soul's capacity for renewal. Timothy's facade wavered, defensiveness creeping into his tone like shadows at dusk. Redemption? A crutch for the feeble, dodging reality's blade. But the words rang hollow, echoing the isolation of 7 years' wandering. Harding pressed, risk-laden as walking a precipice, then why flee consequences? True evolution faces the mirror unflinching. The duel ignited a psychological chess match spanning nearly an hour, words as weapons in the yard's arena. Deputies labored in periphery, James Henderson hauled from the loft's maw, beams groaning protest, Mary extracted from the cellar's toxic embrace, coughing life's reclaim, grandchildren lifted from the wells. Watery tomb, their cries piercing like accusatory prayers. Sensory immersion deepened the horror, wood splintering under frantic tools, gas hissing insidious escape, water sloshing in frantic bail. Emotionally, the scene gripped dread for the trapped, curiosity at Timothy's unraveling, empathy for Harding's burdened gambit. Through dialogue, Timothy's evolution unveiled, from Sedalia's impulsive sadist to a nomad refining death's artistry. Yet cost-mounted empathy's suppression birthed profound solitude, a predator's perfection yielding eternal aloneness. "You're isolated," Harding diagnosed, voice soft as confessors. "Studying connections, yet forging none." Timothy's composure shattered, voice rising raw, "You think I chose this void? I've mimicked your emotions, chased your meaningless bonds, but the spark eludes. Something absent from birth." Anguish flashed genuine, a damaged core weaponized against the world. Biblical echoes resounded, the mark of Cain, not just curse, but cry for belonging denied. Rescues climaxed as Timothy's breakdown peaked, deputies converging, family members freed, battered but breathing. William Henderson, unbound earlier, staggered forth, eyes haunted by forced choices. Margaret stirred from drugged stupor, whispering fragmented horrors. The grandchildren clung to kin, sobs muffled in embraces. Timothy's reaction? Not fury at thwarted plans, but subtle relief, shoulders sagging imperceptibly. "Glad they're spared," he confessed, voice cracking. "Death wasn't the goal, understanding was. Why do bonds endure?" A flicker of conscience, buried deep, surfaced like light through storm clouds, perhaps not redemption, but its shadow. Capture followed swift, Timothy's bolt toward fields thwarted by Cain's tackle, mud splattering like spilt blood. Restraints clicked, cold iron echoing finality. Headlines blazed across Midwest presses, ink-smudged broadsheets detailing the Caregiver killer's fall, farms and towns buzzing with whispered relief. Yet legal labyrinth awaited, mirroring childhood quandaries, youth mitigating early crimes, competency debates raging in oak-paneled courtrooms. Harding testified exhaustively, journals brandished like sacred texts, chronicling evolution from cave torturer to societal reaper. His words forged precedents, frameworks for antisocial disorders, influencing prosecutions like divine law inscribed anew. Timothy cooperated eerily, trial as podium, detailing methods with clinical poise, insights rippling through law and medicine. Verdict: life without parole, in a fortress facility blending cage and lab, danger contained, intellect mind. Harding's visits in that first year, under gaslight's flicker in sterile cells, yielded groundbreaking interviews. Published papers dissected psychopathy's core, intelligence sans empathy, curiosity unbound by conscience. Not supernatural evil, Harding penned, while scratching parchment, but neurology's cruel twist, a window to prevention. The Hendersons healed slowly, scars psychic as physical, William advocating caregiver vetting, protocols blooming from his ordeal like redemption's fruit. Timothy's journals seized tomes of clinical horror, unraveled cold cases, patterns illuminating unsolved shadows. Broader legacy, protocols for spotting childhood deviance, interventions halting descent. Spiritual reflection loomed, sin's seed sown early, divine grace in early harvest? Timothy adapted to incarceration with cunning grace, model inmate, manipulating hierarchies while feigning reform. Harding's final 1876 visit, cellar thick with iron and regret, unveiled ongoing theories, prison's perfect lab, defects classified, motivations mapped. Remorse queried. Timothy's reply chilled, intellect grasps wrongness, but feeling eludes. Simulation suffices for fools. Honesty sealed his fate, eternal bars, yet fueled studies, making him criminology's enigma. Files sealed for half-century, reopened in 1920s amid psychology's dawn, required for profilers, psychiatrists dissecting minds like cadavers. Harding perished in 1877, journal's last entry reflective, a decade chasing one soul's shadow-taught evil's nuance, aberration and mirror to our darkness. Pray no echoes. Timothy endured till 1923, age 67, theories evolving in solitude. Final interview, regrets? Limited tools, scant subjects. Modern eras beckon greater revelations. Deathbed detachment, murder as missed science. Legacy haunts, evil's origins, innate void or trauma's forge? Redemption's possibility, society's shield against empathy's absent. Questions echo, born monster or made? Others lurking? Cinematic close, fading sepia images of farms, caves, cells, sensory whispers of wind, chains, cries. Emotional immersion, dreads release, curiosity sated, reflection profound. In this spiritually chilling tapestry, divine justice arcs slow retribution not in death, but understanding's light. Guilt's ledger balanced? Sin's cycle broken? Ponder, viewer, empathy's gift, or curse untamed.